What's up, folks? This is Eddie Eds. This is the Epstein files, and this is big development. As far as this, it's just crazy. This whole Epstein saga just keeps getting weirder and more twists and turns. Miami Herald journalist, investigative reporter, who some people have credited with being the person single-handedly responsible for any sort of justice that may have manifested with regards to the Epstein Maxwell network. Julie K. Brown is being sued by victims of Jeff Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell's sex trafficking network. I had a few interactions with Julie K. Brown over the course of the Ghislaine Maxwell trial. I didn't have many because she was in the physical courtroom, I believe, every single day. The room along with Ghislaine Maxwell. Me not working for an esteemed outlet such as the Miami Herald, I was considered an Untermensch of sorts. If anybody knows a little bit of German, a subhuman. And in that sense, I was not ever allowed to go into the main courtroom. But she seemed to me to be very standoffish. She almost always had her mask on. And I recall one time in particular, it was just weird. There was like Julie K. Brown and two other people, a male and a female, who I'm not going to name, and they were just so closed off. Their body language was, and it seemed to be emanating from Brown because the other two were much younger and much more deferent to her. Obviously, she's some hotshot journalist and such, and I was like looking for a beat to talk to her and just do a quick interview. Not that she would have, I don't think, but she seemed to be avoiding me for some reason. And I didn't really know why. It wasn't a huge priority for me to talk to her because I just didn't have a whole lot to say as far as, pressing her about it. And, I wasn't going to genuflect just because they have a lot of followers or whatever. Right. So, that being said, I have heard whispers of people talking. I'm not going to say who. Some people, either third party or directly, told me that victims were not happy with Julie K. Brown, asserting that she had taken advantage of the situation. But this is actually from fellow Wisconsinite Kate Bricollet, so who I met up with in the trial as well. When Miami Herald reporter Julie K. Brown published her book on the Jeffrey Epstein case last year, she dedicated it to Courtney Wild and other victims of the wealthy sex trafficker. Now, Wild and fellow accuser Haley Robson are suing the Star journalist, whose 2018 Herald series about Epstein's shady plea deal for abusing scores of girls led to his indictment. The duo allege she defamed them. I'm sorry, I'm not. This is not Schadenfreude. What's up with all these German words coming up? But I have to say, it's a little funny that like not 2 weeks ago they just published. I guess it was more so like 3 weeks ago in January. The Miami Herald published a piece about Julie K. Brown and a couple other people who had been working on this Epstein case, and they're basically like, it seemed to me taking a lot of the credit, certainly the lion's share of the credit. They even described themselves as independent, I think, and I was like, oh, okay, the Miami Herald is independent media. I didn't know that. And now, just a few weeks later, they are on the bad side of the victims, at least through Julie K. Brown. They are. In this stunning lawsuit, Wild and Robson say Brown published, quote, false and defamatory statements in her 2021 book, Perversion of Justice, the Jeffrey Epstein story, despite allegedly knowing the information wasn't correct and therefore, quote, re-victimized them. In particular, quote, Brown falsely stated that Miss Wild was raped by Epstein and then had sex with Epstein multiple times after the rape. Neither is true. The complaint filed in Miami-Dade County states more egregiously, When Robson refused to sit for an interview for the book, Brown threatened her, saying her refusal would be the biggest mistake of your life. The civil suit alleges defamation, defamation per se, and defamation by implication, and seeks an order requiring Julie Brown to issue a public statement of apology to the women in compensatory and punitive damages. The lawsuit claims Brown has sought to take credit away from the victims, including Wild, who for years battled the Department of Justice over Epstein's controversial 2008 non prosecution agreement and fought for his arrest and a victims' compensation program. Knowing Miss Wild had spearheaded each of these major achievements and not Miss Brown, as she claimed in her book, Miss Brown sought to debase and defame Miss Wild by writing that Miss Wild told the FBI the times that she had sex with him when she was underage, that she could not remember the exact time he raped me, and that at a certain point thereafter, she didn't have to do the sex anymore, the complaint states. In fact, Miss Wild never had sexual intercourse with Epstein and was never raped by Epstein. This is just atrocious if this is true. Good Lord. Meanwhile, the suit accuses Brown of retaliating against Robson because she refused to be interviewed for the book by depicting her as a mini Ghislaine Maxwell. Maxwell, former girlfriend, longtime pimp for Epstein. I'm sorry, that was my word. Longtime confidant of Epstein. I'm reading somebody else's words. Don't want to put any words in anybody's pen. Was recently convicted of grooming and abusing minor girls for him. Fulfilling her threat, quote, Brown then portrayed Robson not as the teenage victim she was, no different than dozens of other victims, but rather as a mini Ghislaine Maxwell and a member of Epstein's circle, despite knowing that to be a false narrative. Brown's libelous attacks on these two victims will have lasting effects, as both have children and family members who will suffer regular attacks by those in the community who read or hear of these defamatory statements. Giuffre, the attorney representing Robson and Wild, said the false reporting in Brown's book is the latest insult to injury for victims who've been traumatized by Epstein, his enablers, and the government for failing to properly charge him back in the 2000s. Brown, Gutchess added, took the victims' stories and commercialized them. When I met Haley and Courtney and I heard the story, I was shocked by how much harm and damage this book caused to them emotionally, Gutchess told the Daily Beast. Neither of them is money hungry or sees this as some sort of opportunity to get rich or anything like that. They were just horrified by the injury they suffered. They need to take a stand, I think it's supposed to say, Katie, and push back against that. Referring to the alleged threats against Robson, the lawyer told us, when that happened, Haley was shocked. It's odd behavior. I can't explain it. I don't know why an author would threaten a victim like that if she didn't cooperate. According to the lawsuit, Brown wanted to break new ground in her book, in part by reporting on Miss Robson's true role as a victim. The press has long reported Robson was a recruiter based on documents from the Palm Beach Police Department's 2005 investigation into Epstein. But Robson, who says she was 16 when she first gave Epstein a massage and began finding victims for him, had been wrongfully vilified by the media for years, her complaint says. Indeed, in Filthy Rich, the Netflix documentary about Epstein's crimes, Robson came forward and said it was unfair for cops to treat her as the financier's right-hand man. On camera, Robson said, I feel like I've been putting the blame on myself for so long, but I shouldn't feel guilty about it because I was 16 and he's the adult. The lawsuit says Brown asked to interview Robson under the guise of helping her restore her reputation and tell her true story as one of Epstein's victims. But when Robson opted not to participate, Brown allegedly warned Robson she was, quote, making the biggest mistake of your life, end quote. With the publication of Perversion of Justice, Miss Brown carried out her threat. Man, I'm so glad I didn't buy that book. Carried out her threat by characterizing Miss Robson not as a victim, but rather as an eager participant and co-conspirator in Epstein's crimes, the complaint states. You know what's the worst part about this is like it's all women doing this to each other. I just want to observe that, okay? This is not, as far as I can tell, the reporters who have been in trouble, Vicky Ward, this woman, uh, the other person who I'm not going to name, who is arguably not a reporter. Uh, anyways, a review of Brown's book shows she described how Robson brought a girl to Epstein's Palm Beach lair and received a $200 finder's fee. Brown writes that Robson was giddy with excitement when she told the girl, "If we do this every Saturday, we will be rich." The complaint says Brown knew the statements about Wilde and Robson were false and defamatory because of her prior interviews with them. Brown interviewed Wilde on the record and Robson off the record, according to the filing. Wow. Comment here from Monk Snack. I heard some time ago Julie was a gatekeeper of some sort, perhaps from Roberta Glass. Oh, wow. I actually just talked to Roberta yesterday. So we're doing a show this week. We're going to talk about this. We're going to talk about a lot of other stuff. But join me on Sean Atwood's show at 4:10 p.m., which is in about 17 minutes, over on his Patreon. I will be reposting that as well as past ones, which I have failed to get around to downloading and re-uploading. So I'm going to do that this week, as well as the one we're doing here in a few minutes live. Chris Dante Harris is going to be joining me. Charlie Robinson, Macroaggressions, Controlled Demolition books and podcasts are going to be joining us as well. So it should be a fun one. Stay frosty, and we'll see everybody soon.